All right, what's going on, everybody? Y'all already know what it is. You see what the topic is. We're gonna be talking about Liberia. You know what I mean, and how they got everybody thinking that they from Africa. Because this is where it starts at this Pan-African thing. So let's go ahead and get to it. Liberia, officially, the Republic of Liberia, is a country on the West African coast. It is bordered by Sierra Leone to its northwest, Guinea to its north, Ivory Coast to its east, and the Atlantic Ocean to its southwest. It has a population of around 5 million and covers an area of 111,369 square kilometers, 43,000 square miles. English is the official language, but over 20 indigenous languages are spoken, representing the numerous ethnic groups who make up more than 95% of the population. The country's capital and largest city is Monrovia. All right. Yeah, I should look into Monrovia. That's where all the Slavic people come from and all that. Where there's a lot of kidnapping and everything. Anyway, Liberia, because no, so Liberia began as a settlement of the American Colonization Society. All right, look that up. Who believed black people would face better chances for freedom and prosperity in Africa than in the United States. Okay? Black people. When they say black people, we're talking about Europeans. All right? Blacks and Negroes, Europeans. Or colored, rather. All right, anyway. It's a who believed black people would face better chances for freedom and prosperity in Africa and the United States. The country declared its independence on July 26, 1847. The U.S. did not recognize Liberia's independence until February 5th, 1862, during the American Civil War. Okay? During what Civil War? The American Civil War. What they got to do with Liberia, huh? Between January 7th, 1822, and the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861, more than 15,000 freed and freeborn people of color who faced social and legal oppression in the United States, as well as 3,198 Afro-Caribbeans relocated to the settlement. All right, so it says free people of color, so-called oppressed, enslaved people of color that felt oppressed in the United States, and the Caribbeans or whatever, the Afro-Caribbeans and all of them, they left and went to the colony of Liberia as well. All right. So it said the settlers carried their culture and tradition with them, right? What they took with them? Their culture and tradition. All right. So if y'all saying that, hey man, the Liberians, we get all our stuff from them, we get all our culture and our traditions from them. No. Everybody left from over here, and everybody took that stuff over there. And it's crazy because it wasn't that long ago. It said the Liberian Constitution and flag was modeled after those of the U.S., right? On January 3rd, 1848. Let you know it's connected. As you can see up here, look just like the United States flag. Say the motto is the love of liberty brought us here. The love of liberty brought us here. Then, you know, they got the little anthem and all that. Okay, let's get back down to what they say the flag was that. Say modeled after say the Constitution and flag were modeled. Say the Liberian Constitution and flag, right? The Constitution too, and flag was modeled after those of the U.S. on January 3rd, 1848. Joseph Jenkins Roberts, right? Jenkins is probably anyway. Joseph Jenkins Roberts, a wealthy, freeborn African American from Virginia who settled in Liberia, was elected Liberia's first president after the people proclaimed independence. All right, so he was the first president of Liberia, this Joseph Jenkins Roberts guy. All right, it said Liberia was the first Liberia was the first African republic to proclaim its independence, and is Africa's first and oldest modern republic. It retained its independence during the scramble of Africa, right? During World War II, Liberia supported the United States war effort against Germany, and in return, the U.S. invested in considerable infrastructure in Liberia to help its war effort. Okay, so in exchange to help with let them post up in Germany and all that, the United States helped build up the infrastructure and for them helping in the war of Germany. And the sad thing about it is that this war is against the Ottoman empires and all that type of stuff. The other, all the other black people. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that. Y'all, it's just so many sidebars I can hit y'all on. I don't want to make this video too long. I just try to double back on it. All right. So it's a during the World War II, Liberia supported the United States war effort against Germany, and in turn, the U.S. invested in considerable infrastructure in Liberia to help its war effort, which also aided the country in modernizing and improving its major air transportation facilities. In addition, President William Tubman, all right, Harriet Tubman, William Tubman, encouraged economic changes. Internationally, Liberia was a founding member of the League of Nations, right? United Nations, and the Organization of African Unity, right? It's Liberia was a founding member. Let's not forget that Liberia is a country for blacks that came from America. All right. It's the Americo-Liberian settlers did not relate well to the indigenous peoples they encountered, especially those in communities of the more isolated bush. Okay, the bush people. The colonial settlements were raided by the Crew and Grebo from their inland chieftains. Americo-Liberians, right? People from America, they call themselves Americo-Liberians, developed as a small elite that held on to political power. A small elite. So that's where you get your boulets and all them from. It says an indigenous tribesmen were excluded from birthright citizenship in their own land until 1904. All right, so it's letting you know the indigenous tribesmen is who the people from America went and infringed on, and Liberia set up their own colony there. The same reenactment of what happened basically over here, right? When it ran that same play in Africa. All right, so it said Liberians promoted religious organizations to set up missions and schools to educate the indigenous peoples. Do this, man, come on. Does this sound familiar? Does this sound familiar? In 1980, political tensions from the rule of William R. Tolbert resulted in a military coup during which Tolbert was killed, marking the end of Americo-Liberian rule in the country and beginning of years-long political instability. So they went over there and got finessed out of their position. It's 5 years of military rule by the People's Redemption Council and 5 years of civilian rule by the National Democratic Party of Liberia were followed by the First and Second Liberian Civil Wars. So this is what started all the Liberian Civil Wars. So the Americans left from over here and started beefing with the indigenous people and all that. And ended up getting finessed and ended up having to fight. These resulted in the deaths of 250,000 people, about 8% of the population, and the displacement of many more, and shrank Liberia's economy by 90%. A peace agreement in 2003 led to democratic elections in 2005. Come on, man. It's like right around the corner. It's a in which Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected president, making history as the first female president in the continent. Okay. It's a national infrastructure and basic social services were severely affected by the conflicts as well as by the 2013-2016 outbreak of Ebola virus, with 83% of the population living below the international poverty line as of 2015. That's crazy. So Liberia's went over there and started their own little thing. They were doing good before it came out and started debarring them. Then pushed them under the poverty level, got them under everybody else in Africa. That's what it sounded like. All right, the history. It's an updated Acheulean artifacts are abundant across West Africa, attesting to the presence of ancient humans. The emerging chronometric record of the Middle Stone Age, MSA, indicates that core and flake technologies have been present in West Africa since at least the Middle Pleistocene. That's 780 to 126,000 years ago, or Ka. All right. And that they persisted until the terminal Pleistocene Holocene boundary, 12 Ka. The youngest examples of such technology anywhere in Africa. The presence of MSA populations and forests remain. Okay, all that shit ain't got nothing to do with the hell. But yeah, that's the main thing I really wanted to run down for real. But y'all can't keep going on, going into it. We're gonna start letting you know about the Mali Empire, the Saga Empire. You see all that? We'll start letting you know about early colonization with the British and the Portuguese and all them. You know, so in the United States, there was a movement to settle free people of color, both freeborn and formerly enslaved in Africa. This was because they faced racial discrimination in the form of political disenfranchisement and the denial of civil, religious, and social rights. Formed in 1816, the American Colonization Society was made up of Quakers and slave holders. Well, I'll be down. So all of a sudden, the slave holders gonna be trying to help you. Since when? I got to be kidding me, man. So these folks went over there and left and went enslaved themselves in a whole nother colony. Running from slavery and ran right into it. It's made up mostly of Quakers and slaveholders. Quakers believed blacks would face better chances for freedom in Africa than in the U.S., while slaveholders opposed freedom for enslaved people. They viewed repatriation of free people of color as a way to avoid slave rebellions. In 1822, the American Colonization Society began sending free black people of color to the Pepper Coast voluntarily to establish a colony. Most were transported on black-owned barquettes. See Mende Barquette, right? It's a black-owned. Mortality from tropical diseases was high. Of the 4,571 immigrants who arrived in Liberia between 1820 and 1843, only 1,819 were alive in 1843. By 1867, the ACS and state-related chapters had assisted in the migration of more than 13,000 people of color from the United States and the Caribbean to Liberia. These free African Americans and their descendants married within their community and came to identify as Americo-Liberians. Many were of mixed race and educated in the American culture. All right. They did not identify with the indigenous natives of the tribes they encountered. They intermarried largely within the colonial community, right? Within the colonial community, developing an ethnic group that had a cultural tradition infused with American notions of political republicanism and Protestant Christianity. And you know what another thing is? A lot of them was mixing together too, and they was coming from all different type of places. You had people come from this place and that place, and they was all on one colony, and they was all doing their thing. Black, white, Chinese. It said the ACS supported by prominent American politicians such as Abraham Lincoln, Henry Clay, and James Monroe believed repatriation was preferable to having emancipated slaves remain in the United States. So Abraham Lincoln and all these folks had something to do with this. They say similarly, state-based organizations established colonies in Mississippi and Africa. Oh man, hold on. Wait a minute now. It's a similarly based organizations established colonies in Mississippi in Africa, Kentucky in Africa, and the Republic of Maryland. It say which Liberia later annexed. However, Lincoln in 1862 described Liberia as only, in a certain sense, a success, and proposed instead that free people of color be assisted to immigrate to do that say Cherokee? Today part of Panama. They're like Cherokee to me, man. Say Cherokee is a province of Panama located on the western coast. It is the second most developed province in the country. After the Panama province, its capital is the city of David. What? Its capital is the city of David. It has a total area of 6,000. Okay, population of. All right, so that's the city of David. That's interesting right there. All right. They say the Americo-Liberian settlers did not relate well to the indigenous peoples they encountered, especially those in communities of the more isolated bush. The colonial settlements were raided by the Crew and Grebo from their inland chiefdoms. Encounters with tribal Africans in the bush often became violent confrontations. Believing themselves different from and culturally and educationally superior to the indigenous people. They drop a free game, how the folks felt when they came over here to the Americas. All right. They say the Americo-Liberians developed as an elite minority that held on to political power in a country's effort to emulate the American South. Okay? With a conscious effort to emulate the American South. The Americo-Liberian settlers adopted clothing such as hoop skirts and tailcoats and excluded natives from economic opportunities, including creating plantations on which natives were forced to work. I'll be damned. Indigenous tribesmen did not enjoy birthright citizenship in their own land until 1904. Americo-Liberians encouraged religious organizations to set up missions and schools to educate the indigenous peoples. Man, y'all see how they add a little bit here, a little bit there, all at the same time. So when you go look into this stuff, you probably gonna find all kind of stuff. But peep the game though, right? They had a tailcoat, little jackets, hood, skirts, and all that there. You know how you see them uppity niggas be dressed up like that there with them tail skirts and all that. They're not knowing that they representing the oppressor. Now that we know though. So that mean they was over here doing the same thing. Running the side. They were trying to emulate the South. Emulate the same thing they were doing over in the South. They're telling you right now what's going on. And it's all about social isolation. You know, when they say we deal with our own kind, yeah, that don't necessarily mean like real family members, not like that. You know what I mean? They're just saying they're dealing with their own kind of people that y'all know what I'm saying. They click, they circle. Right? We're gonna do business with our clique, our circle. And then we're gonna boom so hard, make everybody else jealous, make them want to be a part of our stuff, want to make them want to assimilate with us, because we're gonna do it so bad. You know what I'm saying? That's what's going on. All right, government. On July 26, 1847, the settlers issued a Declaration of Independence and promulgated a constitution based on the political principles of the United States Constitution. It established the independent Republic of Liberia. The United Kingdom was the first country to recognize Liberia's independence. Who the first country to recognize Liberia's independence? The United Kingdom. So let you know who they down with, okay? The United States did not recognize Liberia until 1862, right? The United States, did not recognize them until 1862. The first country was to recognize was the United Kingdom. All right, it say after the southern states, hold on. It said after the southern states, which had strong political power in the American government, declared their secession and the formation of the Confederacy. So it said the United States did not recognize Liberia until 1862 after the southern states. You know what I mean? So it's like saying the southern states recognized them first. Hold on, wait a minute now, y'all. So we got a United Kingdom linked up with Liberia, which we know is blacks for sure. And the only people recognized them in the United States was the southern states. And the southern states had formed their own government called the Confederacy. All right. So letting you know they declared their secession and the formation. So they seceded from America and created their own government, which is called the Confederacy. All right. It said the leadership of the new nation consisted largely of the Americo-Liberians, who initially established political and economic dominance in the coastal areas that the ACS had purchased. The ACS, they keep on mentioning that. They maintained relations with that's American Colonization Society. All right, it say they maintain relations with U.S. contracts in developing these areas and the resulting trade. Their passage of the 1865 Port of Entry prohibited foreign commerce with the inland tribes. All right, they prohibited foreign commerce with the inland tribes. They hating on the indigenous people, ostensibly to encourage the growth of civilized values. Before such trade was allowed in the region. By 1877, the True Whig Party was the country's most powerful political entity. It was made up primarily of American Indians who maintained social, economic, and political dominance well into the 20th century, repeating patterns of European colonists and other nations in Africa. Competition for office was usually contained within the party. A party nomination virtually ensured election. Pressure from the United Kingdom, which controlled Sierra Leone, right, to the northwest, and France, with its interest in the north and the east, led to a loss of Liberia's claims to extensive territories. Like they wanted to expand the territories, but they couldn't because United Kingdom already had it sold up. They had France sold up and they had Sierra Leone. So that show you the France connection too, you know. All right. Both Sierra Leone and the Ivory Coast annexed territories. You always hear about the Ivory Coast. Yeah, so y'all see why people from America think they're from Liberia or think they're from Africa type thing. You know, it said Liberia struggled to attract investment to development infrastructure and a larger industrial economy. There was a decline in production of Liberian goods in the late 19th century, and the government struggled financially, resulting in indebtedness on a series of international loans. On July 16, 1892, Martha Ann Erskine Ricks met Queen Victoria at Windsor Castle and presented her handmade quilt, Liberia's first diplomatic gift. Born into slavery in Tennessee, Rick said, I had heard it often from the time I was a child how good the queen had been to my people, to slaves, and how she wanted us to be free. What? Is there any truth to that? Was the queen trying to set the slaves free? Queen who? Somebody Elizabeth, or the one who had the colonies? What slaves we talking about? The Slavs? All right. Early 20th century. American and other international interests emphasized resource extraction with rubber production, a major industry in the 20th century. Now we know all the rubber was in America. In 1914, Imperial Germany accounted for 3/4 of the trade of Liberia. Wait a minute. Said 1914, right? Now, remember, did it say that Liberia helped them go to war with Germany? Helped the United States go to war with Germany, the world powers. Remember that? But I guess since they took over, they can do that now. All right, say this was a cause for concern among the British colonial authorities of Sierra Leone and the French colonial authorities of French Guiana and Ivory Coast as tensions with Germany increased. Okay. So they did have a problem with that. All right, First World War. Liberia remained neutral during World War I, okay, until August 4th, 1917, when it declared war on Germany. In 1919, Liberia attended the Versailles Peace Conference. Liberia was one of the founding members of the League of Nations when it was founded in January 1920. Now, I want y'all to understand something. During this same time, from the point of the 1800s, they're talking about the late 1800s, up to the part we're talking about now during the 1900s, they was running havoc on the black people in America as well. Don't forget that. So I guess all these people that ran off and ran to Liberia, it was a lot of people that stayed as well. And so I guess there was a lot of tension going on, and that's when people was getting killed and being murdered, brutalized, and everything else was happening to them. You know, because these were the people of the South and they was running everything. The niggas was running everything. And so, you know, but yeah, it was a whole lot of things going on. That's really what I'm trying to say. You know, there were two sides to this coin. Just got to look into it. And as y'all can see, again, you know, Liberia is one of the founding members of the League of Nations, right? One of the founding members of the League of Nations that became the United Nations, all right, after the League of Nations dissolved. All right, middle 20th century. In 1927, the country's elections again showed the power of the true Whig Party with electoral proceedings that have been called some of the most rigid ever. The winning candidate was declared to have received votes amounting to more than 15 times the number of eligible voters. The loser actually received around 60% of the eligible vote. Okay. They show how they took the vote and all that. See, but y'all get the point though, right? Y'all do get the point. So let's go back to one of these. Let's look at these black folk first. Y'all see these niggas? All right, Charles D.B. It sound like B.B. King. Charles D.B. King, 17th president of Liberia, 1920-1930. He did with his entourage on the steps of the Peace Palace, the Hague of Netherlands. What? Hold on. They say the Hague, the Netherlands, 1927. Come on, y'all. Netherlands. You talking about Germany. You talking about the blacks. So them folk, what they did, went over there and took over Germany. Well, fought against their own people rather, because Netherlands are people that's of Germanic origin. You might as well say they're Germans, and this is what make Africans. So that's why they call themselves Africans, obviously. But I don't know if they're originally from the Netherlands and all that stuff or not, because a lot of these people, they came from Europe. You know what I mean? They already was over there, and they got ran from Europe to the Americas. And so I guess it went on a certain amount of time in the Americas, and they started getting ran from the Americas all the way, back to Europe, to Africa. And if you think about it, everybody trying to colonize or finish colonizing Africa right now. And they kind of like had a nice part to start that. They had a lot to do with starting that, is what it's looking like. All right, so say Imperial Germany accounted for 3/4 of the trade of Liberia. Let's look up Imperial Germany right quick. That's what that means. So you see the coat of arms, you got that already. Got the little hawk thing. All right, cool. So they ain't really talking about that. Look like talking about pressure and all that. Of course, y'all go into it, you're gonna find a lot of stuff. But I ain't trying to lean too left on y'all. All right, let me go back. Go back up to the top where I was going. See, now they say this African Americans depart for Liberia, 1896. The ACS sent its last immigrants to Liberia in 1904. Right? 1904 sent its last immigrants. We talking about 1900s. Straight up. Think about how deep this is. Right? They loaded up from where? They loaded up from New York, if I ain't mistaken. So African Americans depart from Liberia, before Liberia. I think they had left from New York. Let's see, they say a thing about this picture right up in here. I don't think they're going to say nothing about it, but I think they had left from New York, though, for sure. I'll say that about 3-4 times. All right, let me keep going on up. All right, let's see. So we're talking about the bush, they're talking about the crew, the Crebo. I said that's look like a Cherokee, Mississippi, Africa. You already see how they put a Mississippi and Liberia. Put a Kentucky there. So Kentucky and Africa was a colony settled by free African American slaves in the present day Mostarado County, Liberia. All right, yeah. Republic of Maryland. The Republic of Maryland was a country in West Africa that existed from 1834 to 1857 when it was merged into what is now Liberia. It was merged into Liberia. The area was settled in 1834 by freedom Africa. What? In 1834 by freed African American slaves and freeborn African American, primarily from the U.S. state of Maryland, under the auspices, right, of so on and so forth. But listen, they say from 1834 though is when they first tried to start doing this shit. To 1857. That's crazy. I didn't even read that. Mississippi in Africa was a colony on the Pepper Coast founded in the 1830s by the Mississippi Colonization Society of the United States and settled by the American free people of color, many of them former slaves. In the late 1840s, some 300 slaves, okay, so on and so forth. But y'all already see. All this going to be some good information. But y'all see what's going on right now. You came with all kinds of stuff. Look at that. He like a mulatto too. He look wrong. He look weird. American attorney statesman who represented Kentucky in both the United States Senate and the House of Representatives. He was the 7th House Speaker as well as the 9th Secretary of State. Okay. All right, let me keep going. Men in Baku, when they were talking about the ships. So these niggas had these kind of ships right here. They said a barque or bark is a type of sailing vessel with 3 or more masts having the fore and main mast rigged square, and only the Meissen at the most rigged fore. Okay, but yeah, y'all get the point though. Ooh wee. That's hell of a goddamn ride there, son. I guarantee it. And that was probably scary as hell. It's a Greek barteress per Diaz, a term for an Egyptian boat. Okay, that's Egyptian connection right there. All right, that's the term for an Egyptian boat. They say the word bark appears to have some of the Celtic languages. The form adopted by English, perhaps from Irish, was bark, while that adopted by Latin as barca very early, which gave rise to the French barge and barquette. Okay, the barge, you see how they gave the game? They say, it came from the French idea, I guess, the way they use it now, the bark or barquette. Okay. All right, but the point is, though, they had said blacks had boats like this. Privately owned black boats took some of theirs to Africa. They say in 1800s, the British Royal Navy used the term bark. Okay, British Royal Navy, who was that? The Royal Navy is the United Kingdom's naval warfare. I mean force. Although warships were used, okay, they say in the middle decades of 17th century, and through the 18th century, the Royal Navy vied with the Dutch Navy and later with the French Navy for maritime supremacy. From the mid 18th century, it was the world's most powerful navy until the Second World War. The Royal Navy played a key part in establishing the British Empire. Due to its historical prominence, it is common, even among non-Britons, to refer to it as the Royal Navy without qualification. Following World War One, the Royal Navy was significantly reduced in size, although at the onset of World War II, it was still the world's largest. All right, I'm going back. I can get lost into nothing. American Colonization Society. All right, American Colonization Society, ACS, originally known as the Society of Colonization of Free Colored People of America, was founded in 1816 by Robert Finley to encourage and support the migration of free African Americans to the continent of Africa. See, this is back to Africa organization. This is where that whole push came from this white boy right here, if he's a white boy, named Robert Finley. Finesse them boys and going back to Africa. They say, go back to Africa. You know? They weren't saying that just to be saying that. They were saying that because there were people really going back to Africa. They were loading up and they were really shooting, going on. Hey, like going on with the rest of you folks. Go back to Africa. Fucking nigger. Right? Robert Finley, to encourage and support the migration of free African Americans to the continent of Africa. Okay, there were several factors that led to the establishment of the American Colonization Society. The number of free people of color grew steadily following the American Revolutionary War, from 60,000 in 1790 to 300,000 by 1830. Be stroking. That's what I be doing. You see, over 40 years, hey, you see how many more people were born? It said, consequently, slave owners grew increasingly concerned that free blacks might encourage or help their slaves to escape or rebel. In addition, most white Americans saw African Americans as racially inferior and felt that amalgamation or integration of African Americans with white American culture was impossible and undesirable. This see now, first of all, they said they view African Americans as racially inferior, not physically, right? Not literally, just racially, like statistically, socially rather, right? See, because they're talking about amalgamation, right, or integration. You see what I'm saying? They saying in a circle, hey, we want to deal with blacks. You know, if y'all do come in that circle, y'all gonna be at the bottom according to what we believe in to keep our thing pure. And we know in the secret, right? It said of African Americans with white American culture. See, they're like, hey, we got our own white culture over here. We don't want no blacks involved in our own culture. Hey, do y'all thing, do y'all culture, right? It said this reinforced the notion that African Americans should be relocated to somewhere they could live free of prejudice, where they could be citizens. The African American community and abolitionist movement overwhelmingly opposed the project. In most cases, African Americans families had lived in the United States for generations, and their prevailing sentiment was that they were no more African than white Americans were European. It's a contrary to stated claims that immigration was voluntary. Many African Americans, both free and enslaved, were pressured into immigrating. Indeed, enslavers sometimes manumitted their slaves on condition that the freedmen leave the country immediately. According to historian Mark Leipson, colonization proved to be a great failure, a giant failure, doing nothing to stem the forces that brought the nation to civil war. Between 1821 and 1847, only a few thousand African Americans out of the then millions in the U.S. immigrated to what would become Liberia. Close to half of them died from tropical diseases. In addition, the transportation of the immigrants to the African continent, including the provisioning of requisite tools and supplies, proved very expensive. Starting in the 1830s, the society was met with great hostility from white abolitionists led by Jared Smith, who had supported the society financially, and I guess whatever that means, WM, Lloyd Garrison, author of Thoughts of African Colonization, 1832, in which he proclaimed the society a fraud. According to Garrison and his many followers, the society was not a solution to the problem of American slavery. It actually was helping and was intended to help to preserve it. Growth of slavery in the South. All right, it say after the invention of the cotton gin in the 1790s, the growth and export of cotton became a great profitable business. Central to the business was the setting up of plantations staffed by enslaved laborers. Due to the increased demand, imports of African slaves grew until legal importation was barred in 1808, after which time Maryland and Virginia openly bred slaves, producing children for sale, right? Children for sale, South. See, now they calling this Virginia the South, right? Understand that. It's not the whole South. I'm talking about Virginia. All of the colonies, wherever they was at, that was considered the little South. All right. It's through brokers such as Franklin and Ornfield to plantation owners. Say this resulted in the forcible relocation of about 1 million enslaved people to the deep South. The Africans and African Americans became well established and had children, and the total number of the enslaved reached 4 million by the mid 19th century. All right, I think that's enough of that. You know what I mean? But y'all see what's going on, you know. Yeah, for the most part, y'all get it.